Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion podcast. Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion is an authentic reflection of our real life in a loving 24/7 DS marriage. If you crave the passion and intensity of a power exchange dynamic inside of a deeply loving and intimate relationship, you've found the right place. You can always find more from us in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
When we started this podcast, for the first 70 or so episodes, it was my wife Dawn and I talking about our 24/7 Dom-Sub dynamic and all of the internal work that we've had to do as we've worked to embody these roles of dominant and submissive. And over the last couple of months, as we've started to shift, and as Dawn has started to pull herself back from this, I've been leaning more and more into the fact that everything that we do and everything we teach is about so much more than just dominance and submission. Everything that we do and everything that I teach, everything that we share, is always intended to be a reflection of the truth, of the real life that we live together. And for us, that is a 24/7 dominant-submissive marriage, and a dominant-submissive dynamic that's built on love and trust and a lot of intensity and devotion. But more than that, this work that we do and these dynamics we live, they're a different way of seeing relationship. And it's, as much as it is about dominance and submission, it's not about that at all at the same time. It's really about intimacy. My highest value as a man is the truth. And this work is about the truth above and beyond anything else. It's about dropping the roles and the masks that we've been wearing and the ways that we've been playing at life and starting to relate on a level that's deeper from who we actually are underneath that performative way of living. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode, because even though we live and teach through a Dom-Sub lens, because that's the way that we approached this work, what we're really here for, and what I'm really here for, and what Infinite Devotion, the reason we named our business Infinite Devotion, it's not just about dominance and submission. It's not about performance. It's about learning how to live a life and relate in a way beyond performance. It really is about devotion. It's about polarity. It's about how deep intimacy can heal us. And it's about what happens when a man steps fully into his dominant masculine presence and a woman finds the safety and the space and the internal peace to let go of control. And we've built a whole business and a lifestyle and a whole lot of content over the last several years around this dynamic that we live. And I know a lot of you find us because you're interested or curious in the dominant submissive power exchange sort of dynamics, or because you have the fantasies about those things and you want to learn more about them, or learn how to do that in a loving, healthy way, how to engage that fantasy in a way that is good for you because there's something about it that calls to you. So what I want to say here clearly is that what this is, what dominance and submission is for us, it goes way beyond the power exchange. It goes way beyond the kink. What we're really talking about here is how to love and relate from an authentic place with your whole self. We're talking about how to lead and be led in a way that brings out the best in yourself and each other. We're talking about how to build a relationship that's both spiritually grounding and sexually unhinged without having to pretend or act out or be someone you're not. So this episode today, it's not just for people who identify as kinky or dominant submissive, or people who live in these particular relationship dynamics in the same way that we do. This is for anyone who knows that there's more that's possible in love and in sex and in how you show up in the world beyond your relationship. And it's about the lessons that we can learn from dominance and submission and the embodiment of those roles that allow us to live a deeply intimate, loving, passionate relationship. Today I'm going to walk through some of the big pieces of that. I'm going to walk through why polarity matters. I'm going to walk through why masculine and feminine aren't just made up concepts, and why they aren't just old-fashioned ways of living, but why they are actual functional practical ways to live. We're going to talk about why submission and leadership, why submission and dominance, or masculine and feminine, are just two sides of the same really sacred coin, and why this work can change everything. Not just your relationship, but your whole entire life. But where I want to start is with intimacy, because all of this is about getting closer to the truth of who you are and letting that truth be seen. This whole way of relating, all of this work, it's about intimacy. And that word gets thrown around a lot, it gets used a lot, but I don't think people actually know what it means. People use intimacy as a word that they plug in for sex because they are maybe ashamed or afraid of using the word sex. Or some people think intimacy is cuddling or sharing your feelings with someone. But real intimacy is way more than that. It's so much deeper than that. Intimacy is the willingness to let someone see you, to really be seen, not just the polished parts or the highlight reel or the things you think are acceptable, but really letting the raw, ugly, the ashamed, the parts of you that you spent your whole life trying to shove down in a box or hide from yourself. Letting all of that be seen, and the willingness to let someone else see into all of that, and to see all of that in someone else and not turn away from them. And that's the thing. Most people don't actually want to be intimate. They want to be validated. They want someone to make them feel good. They want closeness without having to be uncomfortable. But you can't have real intimacy without discomfort. You can't have real intimacy without being cracked wide open and having all of those false parts of yourself destroyed. You can't have intimacy without feeling sometimes like you're completely naked. Not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually naked in front of the person you love the most. What I've found is that power exchange dynamics, dominant submissive dynamics for us, when they're done with integrity, when they're done with presence, they're one of the most intimate forms of relationship there is. Because it requires this constant uncovering. It puts the truth out on the table over and over and over and over. The submissive has to bring all of herself. She has to let go of control. She has to surrender her mask and her defenses, her self-protection, her self-control. Not just once, but every single day. And the dominant, for me to stand in that role, I have to be deeply, deeply present. I have to stay grounded in myself enough to lead, to hold, to challenge, to protect, to guide. And I can't fake this. I can't run off inside my own head and pretend like I'm actually showing up. I have to actually show up. When it's real, dominance and submission demands intimacy. It creates a structure that exposes you, both of you, to each other in a way that you can't hide anymore. And that's one of the reasons that I believe this work is so powerful, because for the kind of relationship that most people say they want, a passionate, trusting, honest, sexually invigorated relationship that stands the test of time, you can't have that without intimacy. You can't have that without revealing yourself. You can't have that if you're not letting yourself be fully seen, and if you're not willing to fully see your partner. So regardless of whether or not dominant submissive dynamics call to you, the core truth is still this: if you want to be fully loved, you have to be fully known. If you want to be fully known, you have to be willing to fully show up all the way for yourself and for your partner. And that's what we're doing here. That's what this work is really about. It's not about the titles of dom and sub. It's not about the protocols. It's not about the collars. It's not about anything else. It's about the way that dominant submissive dynamics, for us, create the structure that allows for and requires of us to live in alignment with polarity and to make a conscious choice to live inside of a container where the truth is safe, where you don't have to be hidden anymore, So when people ask me, why do we talk about this through the lens of dominance and submission? Well, it's not because it's kinky. It's because it creates that structure for us that makes intimacy not only possible, but it makes it necessary. It makes it a requirement because it takes away the hiding places if you really embody these roles fully. And when we stopped hiding, for Dawn and I, we found each other. We found ourselves. We found a love that keeps breaking us open every single day. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. But let's talk about polarity a little bit. Because polarity plays a part in why these dominant-submissive dynamics are so powerful. And polarity is a word that gets thrown around a lot. You've heard us use it a lot. You do any sort of social media browsing around relationships, and you hear a lot of people talking about polarity. But like intimacy, this is a word that most people use, and almost nobody understands what the hell it means. Because it's not just an energetic kind of woo-woo spiritual concept, and it's not just a cute idea that you don't just sprinkle some polarity on your relationship and then get it feeling spicy again. And probably the biggest misunderstanding, polarity is not just sexual chemistry. If you think polarity is just sexual chemistry, you're going to be sadly disappointed when the new relationship energy wears off that was nothing but a trauma bond, and now you're left there facing the depth of why you were so drawn to each other in the first place. Polarity is reality. It's physics. It's biology. It is the natural tension that exists between two opposing forces. It's that tension that creates aliveness. And there's polarity in everything in the universe. This is not a relational concept. This is a deep truth about the universe. Without polarity, there's no spark, there's no attraction, there's no charge, there's no tension. Without polarity, it's just sameness. And sameness might feel safe, but it feels safe because it's not alive. There's nowhere that you're more safe than when you're dead. But most people just die energetically to protect themselves from the fear of actually being alive. Because in relationship, polarity shows up most clearly when we are in our masculine and feminine energy. Another thing that most people have no fucking clue what those words mean. For some people, those words bring up a lot of resistance because we've been told that masculinity and femininity are old-fashioned. Masculinity is toxic, femininity is just making yourself a doormat, or it's just being all soft and sweet and kind and putting on flowery dresses. But when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not talking about gender roles, and I'm definitely not talking about the preconceived notions that you have that are attached to those gender roles. I'm talking about the essence underneath, the energy, the patterns that live inside of the human experience. I'm talking about something deeper. Now, I'll say it this way. The masculine is the container, the presence, the structure. Feminine energy is the flow, the expression, the life force, the energy. You can't take those two things and collapse them down into one and expect that desire is still going to live there. The spark exists in the separation, in the difference. And of course, we all have both of these within us. If you want to know more about that, a little ways back, Dawn and I did a 2-part episode on polarity. You can get more into the weeds on this in that episode. But for today's sake, in relationships, especially romantic sexual relationships, in general, someone is going to take the lead and someone is going to hold the frame. And then inside of that, someone is going to open and blossom and bloom and explore. And that is polarity. That's what creates magnetism. That's what draws two people together. That's where the spark exists. You don't have to call this dom and sub. You don't even have to call it masculine and feminine. It doesn't matter if you label it or not. This is a truth about what exists underneath all of that crap. But if you've ever been in a relationship where everything just felt flat, where you felt like you really loved each other and you were best friends, there was no passion anymore, you were missing polarity. Because polarity is what pulls us towards each other. It's what makes a woman's body soften and feel drawn and pulled and come alive when a man who walks into the room carries a fully grounded presence and gravity. It's what makes a man stand up a little bit straighter when he sees the fire of desire and openness and aliveness and the spark in a woman's eyes, and he can feel her softening into him. This is a primal thing. This is a biological thing. It's wired into us. This isn't just a relationship tactic, and it's not something you can fake. You will never fake this. You can talk about polarity all day. You can read all of the books. You can listen to the podcasts. You can get done with this today and think, okay, I got that figured out now. You can take workshops on it, but until you actually start living in alignment with your deeper essence, until you truly embody the masculine or the feminine in the way that is authentic to you, none of it really clicks. You have to actually live, not play the game. Because polarity is not a strategy. You cannot do it. Polarity and masculine energy and feminine energy and all of these things are a state of being. And they're just something that happens naturally when you get out of your own way. When you heal yourself, when you let go of the reasons that you've been trying to be someone other than you are. All of those things I said earlier that you stuffed down, that you didn't want to reveal, the places where you were not really being intimate and open and vulnerable, that's what keeps you from experiencing polarity. The more deeply you reveal yourself in deep intimacy, the more alive your relationship becomes. And the more you find that passion that you thought that you lost, the more you access the depth you've been craving, not just sexual, but emotional, spiritual, energetic, relational depth. Polarity is what allows love to remain erotic. Polarity is what allows love to remain sexual over the long term. It's what makes the difference between the mundane and the magnetic. And if you can feel that in your bones, that maybe your relationship's missing something, or that the relationships you've been in the past have been missing something, that spark, that intensity, that heat, over the long run, once that new relationship energy wears off, it's almost always a polarity problem. Polarity can be rebuilt. You can rewire it. You can reignite it. But only if you're willing to allow yourself to be intimate. Only if you are willing to allow yourself to stop playing safe. Because every place that you're trying to play it safe is where you're neutralizing yourself. And if you're neutralizing yourself, you're neutralizing the relationship. We have to be fully in ourselves in order to be different enough that we don't just become the same. We have to be willing to lean into who we really are. And the real challenging part is leaning into who you really are and allowing your partner to do the same thing. This is the willingness to be individuals while still being fully devoted to each other and unwind those codependent patterns. To do relationship without trying to reconcile all of the differences and come back to a place where everything's the same. Polarity is a dance of opposites. And when you learn how to dance it, then everything changes. Now, the truth is, most people are afraid to say it, but men and women are not the same. We're not the same. We need each other. We're opposites. We're built to count on, depend on, and rely on each other. These are not interchangeable things. They're not things that we can neutralize without consequences. They're not, men and women, masculine and feminine, are not equal in function. Now, this doesn't mean that one is better than the other, but they are different, and the difference is functional. This isn't just aesthetics. This isn't about dress. This isn't about politics. It's not about whatever your preconceived notions of masculine and feminine are. This is biological. It's energetic. It's spiritual. But even more, it's practical. It's practical. It's practical to celebrate the differences. If you can't celebrate the differences and encourage them and allow them to bloom and blossom, or even worse, if you're trying to erase the differences, you'll never experience the depth of intimacy and passion that's possible in a romantic relationship. Love doesn't thrive in sameness. It thrives when we are allowing the truth of how we complement each other in our differences. Love and passion thrive in contrast. We are functional, practical opposites. The masculine is directional. It's focused. It penetrates. The feminine is expansive. It flows. It receives. The masculine holds and the feminine expresses. The masculine takes responsibility and the feminine surrenders control. The masculine is the container and the feminine is what moves inside of the container. One isn't better than the other. They serve very different purposes and they need each other. When you understand that, when you embody that, when you begin to live in celebration of the very natural differences that we can embody as man and woman, you can actually start to feel the harmony that exists when those differences are honored, rather than just one note. A song with one note would get really boring. So when we play, we allow multiple notes to play. Now we can start having chords and harmony, and we can start having something in a relationship that has more life to it. And the problem is we built a culture that worships the sameness. We've been told everything should be equal, split down the middle. Everybody needs to bring something to the table. We need to come to consensus on everything. But if you're constantly negotiating, you're flattening your relationship. If both people are trying to lead, no one's actually following, and there's generally just conflict. If both people are trying to follow, nothing gets done, and you end up lost and spinning and stuck. There is an inequality to a polarized relationship, but this isn't a better and worse inequality. This is a different. It's a difference. It's equality of value rather than equality of action. We're both worth the same. We achieve and experience that worth by celebrating our differences. You don't want to be with your mirror image. You want to be with your counterpart. Now, when a man really claims his masculine function, when he leads and penetrates the moment with presence and strength, when he brings structure, direction, clarity, responsibility into the relationship, the feminine body responds to that. She relaxes, she melts, she opens. That's what she's longing for. That's what she's made for. That doesn't mean she's weak. It doesn't mean she can't lead herself. It doesn't mean she's incompetent. But because being in her feminine means letting herself be led and to let go. And the more that the man embodies that functional, practical masculine essence, the more deeply she can rest and relax into her feminine essence. And that's the part that no one talks about. Conscious masculine embodiment doesn't just benefit the man. It liberates the feminine. It liberates his woman, but it liberates the feminine on a grander scale as well. Because when a woman has to hold it all herself, when she always has to be in charge, when she always has to be on, when she always has to be functioning and always in control, she's forced to disconnect from the parts of her that make her feel like a woman. She loses her softness, her radiance, her eros, her turn on. There are no women with low libidos. There are just women who have not surrendered to or had it be possible for them to experience a man who is fully in his masculine embodiment and her own ability to let go of control and allow him to lead. This is where the embodiment of our opposites become medicine. The more deeply a man claims his masculine role, the safer and freer his woman becomes to fully inhabit that feminine essence. And the more she surrenders to her feminine nature, the more he rises into his masculine strength. That's how these opposites work. It's not conflict when it's done in devotion. This isn't about domination in the way that word gets misunderstood. This is about function. This is about alignment. When the masculine and feminine are confused with each other, when they are collapsed into each other, when they are inverted, relationships get chaotic. Nobody knows their role. Nobody knows what to lean into. There's no structure for the energy to move in, for the love to move in. But when they're clear, when each partner is deeply rooted in their function, everything becomes easier and desire flows naturally. Tension dissolves and becomes the tension that is present is a tension that magnetizes energy rather than repels energy. And the relationship itself then becomes the place where you both get to rise into who you were always meant to be. Not by becoming the same, but by becoming more different. And this is one of the things that most people miss. People in the dominant submissive world who find us, people in the spiritual world who recognize the concepts of divine masculine and feminine and union that exist in the relationship that Dawn and I live. Even people who are in securely attached, healthy, conscious, emotionally intelligent relationships. We talk about the surrender of the feminine. We talk about her surrender. And that is one of the most beautiful things in the whole world for a man to witness, is a woman who is feeling internally and externally safe enough to soften, to let go and relax into her feminine and the way that she comes alive and radiates and feels and trusts. It's one of the most beautiful things you could possibly experience. But that's not the only surrender happening, and that surrender does not happen in a vacuum. Because in order for that to feel safe enough for her, both people have to be playing their role in full integrity. And that means there's surrender on both sides. It is not just her surrender. The masculine, the dominant, the man, the husband, whatever one of these interchangeable words you want to use, we also have an equal surrender that's necessary to complete this full cycle, to make these functional opposites work. It just looks different. Her surrender is physical. It's letting go of control. My surrender, the man's surrender, is emotional. It's cracking our hearts open. It's cracking our hearts open and letting ourselves be broken down in all of the ways that we have not even allowed ourselves to receive love because we've been so afraid. She has to let go of so much in order to be able, for Dawn to be able to live the life she lives and to experience life in the way that she does. She has to let go of so much. And that all the way down to really taking care of herself and trusting me to take care of her, to protect her, to look after her, so she can live in the flow. And that is an inherently, physically dangerous level of surrender. She needs to know that she is held in a solid container in order to let go that fully. But I can't hold her in a solid container if I'm just trying to grip, if I'm just trying to control. Because that kind of control becomes tyrannical. That's not safe for her. She will not ever reach that level of surrender if all she's met with is tyranny. She has to let go into something. You've heard me use this phrase maybe before, that a woman cannot surrender into a void. She has to let go into something where she's caught, where she's held, into a space where there is a masculine presence there to take on the responsibility of that holding and that protection. She's surrendering to the unknown. She's surrendering to his direction, his desire, his leadership, his presence, his essence, his vision. But in order then for him to have that kind of responsibility and not become tyrannical with it, not use it to hurt her, but use it to set her free, he has to be surrendered in himself. He has to surrender to purpose, to the role of being a protector, to the responsibility of taking on that much for another person. You have to surrender, essentially, control in order to really lead. You have to surrender the thought as a dominant, as a masculine man, that you are going to have control over her experience by stepping into the role of leadership. You are there to guide her, to steward her, to hold her, to really reflect trust back to her as she goes through the process of unwinding, probably for the first time in her life, all of the mechanisms of control that she has used to set herself free or to keep herself safe. If you aren't willing to carry that weight as a man, if you won't be the container, the edge, the authority, the stable structure, then she cannot and will not ever surrender. And if you are wondering why your woman isn't letting go, trusting you, submitting to you, it's because she doesn't trust you enough yet. You have to go first. You need to rise. This is what most men don't understand. They think that being a dominant is about having power and control. But it's really about being responsible for the power you've been given and dominating yourself, dominating your weakness. If she's not submitting because you demanded it, if she's submitting to you for real, authentically, if she's actually letting go and surrendering, it's because she feels that you're trustworthy enough, that she doesn't have to look after herself, protect herself, take care of herself anymore. Your job, your surrender, is to let go of everything that gets in the way of rising to meet that level of integrity. It's to make yourself strong enough, clear enough, clean enough, pure enough that you can hold the weight of both of you. That's not about getting her to obey or comply. This isn't about writing a contract that obligates her. This is about having devotion to her regardless of whether or not she ever actually lets go. This is about surrendering whether or not she ever actually is able to follow you. This is the willingness to give up doing whatever the fuck you want. To live in service to the relationship, to your woman, to the dynamic, to live in service of love. If you want to use this word, live in service to God. That is the masculine version of surrender. And what I'm telling you is that when both partners are in their true surrender, in the ways that they're different, it's like lightning. You feel it in your body. You feel it moving through you. You feel it in the way that she just lets go, lets herself be claimed by you, craves to be claimed by you. It's mutual, but it's not equal. It's not the same. It's equal in depth. It's equal in meaning. It's equal in the way that it demands everything from both of you. And it has to be mutual. But if she's surrendering and he's avoiding responsibility, she's going to lose trust, feel unsafe, and pull back. If he's doing everything right, but she won't let go of control, she won't open to him, he'll feel drained and unseen, unreceived, unwanted, unvalued. And so the work for both of you is to keep deepening into your own surrender, to keep letting go of everything you think you need to allow yourself to be present with what is. And especially not when it's easy, not just when it feels safe, not just when it's convenient, but to do it when it's scary, when everything in your ego wants you to pull back or take control. That's the edge. That's where you need to lean into surrender most. Obviously with discernment. We do this inside of relationships where there is a mutual commitment and devotion and love. But the more that you do it, the more you let yourself be undone and destroyed by this, the more you'll realize that this is not about control or performance. This is about real life embodied devotion. The kind where you both show up fully, the kind where you offer yourselves fully to each other. And you give yourself to something bigger than yourself or the relationship, bigger than your preferences, bigger than your fears. And that's what surrender really means. Surrender is not just for the submissive, for the woman. If you're trying to do it that way, where the man steps into this tyrannical control and the woman just lets go of control, you're going to crash into a wall. Dominance and submission isn't just a costume. It isn't just a checklist. It's not the titles. It's not the yes sirs. It's not the collars. The stuff is fun. It's enjoyable. It's sexy. It can even be useful. Like, structure matters. Ritual matters. Language matters. But they're not the point. The point is who you become. The point is who you have to become on that path. Because dominance and submission, when it's done right, it changes you. You have to rise to meet the dynamic. You can't stay the same. You can't keep everything the way that it was, all of the stuff hidden and stuffed down, and live this out in any kind of a meaningful way at all. You can't fake it long term. You can fake it in a scene. You can play with these energies for an hour or two. But nobody really comes to me with the challenges that they face when they're doing scene-based dominance and submission. It's when you start going deeper, when you start challenging your own beliefs around love, and how love and power and surrender and control all start to play and interact. That's when the dynamic starts to demand more of you, both of you. More presence, more clarity, more emotional intelligence, more ability to see each other and to accept each other. And you can't fake that, at least not for very long. And the truth is that a lot of people in the dominant submissive world are faking it. They're stuck in performance. They're trying to act dominant or act submissive or do what they think a dominant is supposed to do, or act this way because that's how they think a submissive is supposed to act. And maybe because it looks hot or it feels sexy or they get a rush from it. But there's no substance to it. If there's no substance to it, and then you try to bring those dynamics outside of your scenes and into your life, without any substance, without any structure, without any real embodiment of what it means to be the person that can actually hold that kind of energy, It's just live action role play, and that will eventually crash and burn. There's nothing wrong with that. If what you want is to have your dominant submissive dynamic stay inside the bedroom on the weekend and to have them stay contained within scenes, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I teach. It's not what I'm about. It's also not really, it's missing the point of what these dynamics really can make possible for you. But that's up to you if you're ready for that. Because the embodiment of what it means to go deeper inside of these dynamics, that's what creates the kind of life-changing intimacy and devotion that Dawn and I have built and that we live together. Because what we've found over and over and over again is that the real magic in dominance and submission happens when you figure out where it is you're performing. You stop performing and you start really transforming and opening yourself up and finding the authentic drive underneath that. So when you stop thinking about, do I look like a dom, or am I acting like a sub, or am I subbing right? You start asking yourself, who do I need to be? Who do I need to become? What do I need to let go of or surrender in order to actually let this feel real? For me, I've said it this way before. I became a dominant long before I actually became dominant. For me to actually become dominant, it was about giving up my comfort, my hiding, my passivity, my excuses, my drive and desire to please, and becoming a man who could be fully trusted because I developed a trust in myself. And Dawn's submission has been a path of becoming, too. Not about shrinking, not disappearing, not hiding, but really revealing the fullness of who she really is as a woman. Letting me see deeply into her and see who she really is underneath all of those masks. And then setting down her resistance and letting me guide her closer to the embodiment of the woman she was born to be. And this is not weakness. There's no space for being a doormat in this. This is required absolute commitment and devotion, first and foremost, to herself, not to me. Her devotion to me is her devotion to herself, to her willingness to open to the path that I see for her inside of the structure that I create for her, so that she can set herself free and be free. All the work she's done to let go of control, to trust me, to trust herself, to surrender to something bigger than either of us, that's taken more courage on her part than I can even put into words. She has been so damn courageous. And there is not an ounce of doormat in that woman. You cannot bury yourself in your submission and come alive in the way that she has. This isn't a weakened version of her identity. This has been her growing into the true power that it can exist when she's held. And like any path that leads somewhere worthwhile, it's going to be a challenging path. It has to be. For both of us, we've had to confront our ego every single time. We've had to be willing to be shown all the places we're trying to protect ourselves or hide. We've had to be willing to let go of every single belief about what we thought love was and how it was supposed to look, what you're allowed to want, who you think you're supposed to be. Because at its core, dominance and submission, masculine, feminine, whatever words you want to use, this is a spiritual discipline of intimacy. It brings you into contact with truth, with power, with devotion. And when you really walk it, it will bring you face to face with the limits of your own capacity and then invite you to blow through those limits and expand into the infinite. And this is what people don't realize when they look at us from the outside, when they see the collar or the photos or the content. They think it's about the visual. They think it's about the dynamic, about the roles. And that's really not it at all. What we've built together has very little to do with that surface level stuff. It's the fact that I've watched my wife transform into a freer, more open, more radiant, alive, erotic woman because she chose to walk this path with me. Because she chose herself. And she's gotten to see me become a better man. A stronger, more trustworthy, more anchored, solid, grounded version of myself. Because I've committed not just to being her dominant, not just to being a dominant, but to actually being as solid and strong as I can be inside of myself, no matter what it takes, no matter what I have to allow to die, no matter how often it absolutely destroys everything that I thought that I was. So if you're going to do this, if you really want to build this into your life, into your relationship, you have to be willing to let go of the performances and everything that you think that you're going to get out of the performances and really allow yourself to become. It's the path that changes you. And the more you fully give yourself to it, honestly and deeply, the more you realize that this isn't about power at all. Not in the way that you think it is. It's about truth. It's about love. It's about devotion to yourself and to your partner. And this dynamic, this dominant submissive dynamic, masculine feminine polarity dynamic, it's about more than just those roles. It really becomes about healing. Because when you really live in this way, when you actually commit to polarity, not just as a concept, but as a daily lived practice, you start to come face to face with everything that's been keeping you stuck. Not just your partner's wounds and how your partner is keeping you stuck, your own. Now, this doesn't mean that your relationship is a substitute for trauma healing. But it does mean that your relationship is a mirror and it is reflecting back to you the places in yourself that you have not yet let go. Life will always present you with circumstances to show you where you're not free. Most of us just assume it's about the circumstances rather than taking responsibility for ourselves. Polarity is just what turns that mirror up to full brightness because you can't hide anymore. The more polarized your relationship becomes, the more magnetism, the more intimacy, the more eros, the more it pulls up everything that's in the way. It shows you your fear, your control, your insecurity, your shame, your unworthiness. All of that comes up to the surface. And that's why I say this path is not for the faint of heart. It will bring you to your knees. It will break you down. And that is where the healing really begins. You know, Dawn and I didn't start out with this picture perfect dynamic. We didn't start out where we are right now. It isn't picture perfect right now, folks. She's had to confront over the years so many levels and layers of shame around her body, patterns of performance, fear of her sexuality and her worthiness. I've had to let go of all of these people-pleasing patterns, the places where I've been hiding myself, the places I've been terrified of not being enough or too much. And that's just the beginning. But we didn't have to go looking for those things because we were willing to expose ourselves in vulnerability to each other. We didn't have to go try to dig them up. They surfaced because that's what happens when you start to build a relationship that invites both of you to live in your full truth. Dawn couldn't keep pretending to play small. I couldn't keep pretending to be fine when I wasn't. It was our devotion to each other and the structure of the dynamic and the love underneath it that we started to no longer be able to avoid that pain. And we didn't avoid it. This is what makes us special. It's the fact that we were willing to see it. And that's what I want you to hear, is this pain that most people spend most of their lives trying to avoid. The pain is not the problem. It is the gateway. And polarity is what gives you a way through that gateway. Because when the masculine can be solid enough to hold steady, to not flinch when she cries or rages or aches, when he can just be the mountain that she can collapse against, something happens in her. She softens, she melts. She remembers that she doesn't have to carry it all anymore. And then when she opens and reveals the raw truth, when she's not trying to manipulate or control, when she sets down her defenses and really just lets herself feel how she feels, something happens in her man. He steadies, he strengthens, he stands up a little bit straighter. He remembers who he is, what is required of him, what's demanded of him in order to have what it is that he really wants, which is a relationship with a woman who's fully alive. This is the dance. It's not about fixing each other. It's not about healing for each other. It's about letting polarity and the structure of the relationship do the work that it's meant to do, which is to excavate all of these things and put them on the table, and then be willing to deal with whatever gets put on the table, to find a way to meet it with acceptance. Because when you're deeply, deeply devoted to each other, and your roles are lived and not performed, you create the kind of container, the kind of structure where your partner's healing doesn't scare you anymore. You don't need to rush or change them. You don't need them to feel better in order for you to feel okay. That codependency can start to dissolve. And you trust that this intensity, the emotional intensity of dissolving all of this, serves a deeper purpose. The most healing moments that I can think of in our relationship are the ones where I didn't try to fix Dawn's pain. I just stayed with her. I let her fall apart. I didn't try to hold her together or keep her from falling apart. When I could trust her that she would find her way again. And that alone requires every bit of strength that you can muster as a man. Because the moment that you flinch, the moment I try to shut it down because I'm uncomfortable, I'm telling her it's not safe to be all of herself. I'm telling her that it's not okay for her to feel how she feels, not with me. And for her, the moment she tries to protect me from how she's feeling, the moment she tries to perform or do what she thinks she's supposed to do according to some external identity, she's telling me that she doesn't really trust me to hold her. And then we start to lose each other, and polarity starts to fade. And what this calls us to do is lean in instead of backing away. It calls us to speak truth instead of staying safe. Because that's where the real healing happens. That's where love grows deeper. That's where intimacy gets thicker. That's where the sex gets hotter, even after we've been together for 16 years. So if you're in a relationship right now and you're navigating some emotional intensity, or you're uncovering old wounds, or facing fear or longing or grief, don't make it wrong. Don't make your partner wrong if they're going through this. Don't make yourself wrong if you're going through it. Just let it be. Let it be what it is. It's a sign that something deeper is calling you forward. Be in devotion to yourself and in devotion to that pain. Tell yourself, I won't abandon me. I won't abandon myself and how I feel. I won't back down from the truth of what's here for me. That's how this becomes a container for healing. So maybe you're watching this or listening to this and thinking, all right, Andrew, that's great, but I'm not into dominance and submission. I'm not kinky. I'm not into power exchange. I'm not into calling someone sir or wearing a collar or having her kneel for me or any of that. Good. The message in this episode is that you don't have to be. The things that I teach are the lessons that we have learned through exploring those dominant submissive dynamics. You could strip away all of the labels, all of the words, all of the language, all of the rules and the rituals and the contracts and the collar and everything else. What would not change is who we are for ourselves and who we are for each other because of the devotion that we've developed and built for ourselves inside of this structure. None of this is about trying to turn you into something you're not or convince you to do dom sub. This is about the truth. This is about intimacy. This is about who you are and who you can be and become underneath all of those layers. You do not have to be into dominance and submission to benefit from what it is that I'm talking about here. Because the heart of what I'm teaching you here is not about kink. Dominance and submission was just the structure that brought all of this to life for us. This is about deep, vulnerable, raw intimacy, polarity, the truth, leadership and surrender, the dance of masculine and feminine, which, whether you've named it or not, that is already playing out in your relationship. Or not. Even the most vanilla suburban picket fence monogamous marriage, polarity is there or not there, and it is what is affecting and making that relationship work well or not. It might be buried under resentment. It might be buried under years of unspoken needs and desires. It might be warped by cultural expectations of equality and equalism. But the truth is that masculine and feminine energies are always present in relationship. And when they are out of balance, if one partner is over-functioning and the other partner is checked out, if both people are trying to lead or no one is leading, if the polarity isn't working, the passion dies. The intimacy dies. The polarity collapses. And we call it falling out of love or growing apart. We blame it on stress or busyness or kids or hormones, but really what's missing is vulnerability. What's missing is intimacy. And what the people who are using those excuses are really hiding from is opening themselves up to being hurt. Because only in the willingness to be hurt, to be not seen, to be not accepted, to be told no, to be told I'm leaving, only when you can let yourself be that raw can you really recapture the charge and the spark and the current. Polarity it isn't just about sex, it's about life. It's about the force of life. This is the animus. It's what animates the connection between two people. It's what creates attraction, real, embodied, authentic attraction, not performative attraction like you're going to schedule out your sex so that everybody knows that sex happens at 7 p.m. on Thursday night. No. You can't perform polarity. You can't perform attraction. If you don't allow yourself the vulnerability of deep intimacy, you're just roommates with shared responsibilities and split bills. You might love each other, you might be committed to each other, but if the magnetism is gone, so is the passion. And what this work does, everything that I teach, everything that this whole infinite devotion platform is about, whether you call it dom sub or polarity work or energetic embodiment or conscious relating or evolved relating, whatever words you want to put to it, doesn't matter. This is about getting honest. It's honesty that brings it back. It's honesty with yourself. And that's something that every person needs. It's something every couple needs. Not just the ones who play with kink, not just the ones who like the control or submission or power exchange. Everyone needs this. It doesn't matter if you identify with or get excited by the words dominant and submissive, or if those words trigger the fuck out of you and you want nothing to do with dominance and submission. This still applies to you. Because if you're a man, your woman still wants to feel your leadership. She wants to feel that you see her, that you choose her, that you aren't afraid of her, that you can hold her. She needs your presence, your direction, your depth. She's biologically wired to respond to you. And even if you don't, as a woman, call yourself a submissive, you might still feel that longing to let go of control, to be free from all of the overthinking, to relax and be held by someone else, to not have to hold everything together and keep all of those balls up in the air all of the time. And that desire to let go and be held doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less empowered. It makes you human. It makes you feminine. It makes you whole. Masculine and feminine energies, they're not a performance. They're a remembering and a return to your body and an honesty with the truth of who you are. When we get too far away from the honesty and the truth of who we are, then we're always in control and chasing and doing, and we lose ourselves because we're afraid of being seen for who we really are. We build these false personas and identities to try not to be seen. And then we wonder why we don't feel loved, or we don't feel excited, or we don't feel turned on. Well, you're not even in contact anymore with the real version of you that could experience those things. So then all you're left with is a performance. So this work, it's for everyone. It's for people who want real intimacy, true connection. It's for people who, like me, don't want to live in a world where you can't have the deepest, most loving, connected relationship and the best, most passionate sex with the same person. It's for the people who cannot and will not ever accept that you can't have all of this in one relationship, because you can. Whether you find your way to me through kink and dominance and submission, or you find your way here because of the feeling of some sort of a deeper spiritual resonance, or you just wake up one day and realize, hey, this isn't working the way that I thought it would or that I wanted it to, however you got here, I promise you this is the right place. And I promise you that everything that I share with you and everything that I teach from lived experience. What we've uncovered in the living of this experience is that this is universal. And it's available to you, whether dominance and submission calls to you or not. None of this matters if you can't get your way back to truth. And that's, again, what this work will continue to point you towards. The truth of who you are, the truth of how you actually feel, the truth of what it is that you want. Now, before I finish, I want to take this just one step further. Because most people come to me because they want to do this work to improve their life in their relationship, in the intimacy, the closeness, the sexuality of their relationship, the connection in their relationship. But there's something even bigger at play here that I want to make sure that I touch on. And that is that this work will not contain itself just to your relationship. This work will improve your whole life. Because when you learn to lead with integrity as a man, or surrender with trust as a woman, or hold presence as a masculine figure, or open in devotion as a feminine figure, it changes everything, not just your relationship. Because you're changing yourself. You're coming closer to the authentic you. And that will blossom and penetrate through every other part of your life. It'll show up in how you show up in your career, how you handle your emotions, how you navigate conflict, how you parent, how you relate with your friends. One of the biggest things that I teach, especially to men, is that dominance isn't just about what happens in the bedroom. It's how you hold yourself. It's how you take responsibility everywhere. Do you follow through? Do you live by your word? Do you take care of yourself? Do you take ownership of your mistakes? Do you live in integrity? Do you happen to your life, or do you let life happen to you? Are you living as a victim? And for women, I say the same thing on the other side. Surrender isn't just about letting your man take control in the relationship. It's about being able to release control where you've been white-knuckling life and gripping the steering wheel. It's about opening yourself to love, even when it's terrifying. It's about trusting the truth of how you feel and being willing to express yourself even when that's terrifying, and never being willing to abandon yourself. When you do this work, whether you do it your part alone or you do this together as a couple, it gives you a framework for a transformation that will transcend your relationship. And when that framework starts to really take root in your authenticity, that's where the real magic starts to ripple and expand. Because if you're a man who, for example, starts this work in relationship and you want to show up more powerfully, stronger for your partner, you're taking the lead, you're setting the tone, you're staying steady, you're going to start to notice that you are walking into meetings with more clarity. You're making decisions in every part of your life with less hesitation. You're setting boundaries without guilt. You're feeling more grounded in your mission. You're speaking up for yourself. Because you've stopped outsourcing your power and you've learned how to embody it. You've claimed it for yourself again. You stopped waiting for permission and you started creating direction. And that ripples out into your confidence and your business. It changes how your children perceive you and your ability to be maybe less reactive, less defensive. If you're a woman who's learning how to surrender and you're softening and you're allowing and you're in deeper self-acceptance, maybe at first that is just inside of the relationship. But pretty soon then you might find yourself relaxing in your body more during the day. You might find yourself more able to settle into your body and live a more responsive, receptive life. You might start to notice how much more support shows up around you when you stop trying to do everything yourself and you allow yourself to ask for help, or you just decide not to do everything by yourself anymore. You might notice yourself feeling a little bit less tension, breathing a little bit more deeply, sleeping more soundly, smiling a little bit more. Because this surrender isn't a weakness, it's a return. It's a remembering of the part of you that's fully alive. The part of you that never left you. You're coming back home to yourself. And for both of you, the more that you access that part of yourself in your relationship, the more it'll show up in every other part of your life. You'll see it and feel it in how you walk into a room and how you interact with your family, how you deal with hard conversations, how you experience pleasure, how you take responsibility, because you cannot compartmentalize your life anymore when you start coming into full and true embodiment. Power and presence and trust and responsibility, these things cannot be compartmentalized. If it's real, it's going to show up everywhere. And that's really why this work is so special and why it matters so much. Because yes, it makes hotter sex, deeper love, better polarity, closer, more passionate relationships. But it's not because it fixes the relationship. It's because it brings you home to yourself. And it shows you all the places you've been living small and you've been avoiding pain. It shows you all the places where your energy is disorganized, your heart is guarded, your spirit is dimmed, and you're hiding behind walls. And the deeper you go into this work, the more clearly you can see where those old patterns are still alive. Because if they're still alive, they're going to come up. The structure of the relationship will bring them to the surface. They will trigger you. You will be standing there face to face with your discomfort, with the control, the avoidance, the fear of being too much, the fear of not being enough. You'll be faced with the resentment that you've built up by suppressing your truth. This brings it all to the surface, which is why I say again, if you do this right, it is going to destroy you. Not in a bad way, but in a way that clears out the path, in a way that allows the truth of who you are to really come forward. And when that happens, you get to live a life that's actually fully aligned and congruent. Now, I'm not saying a life that's perfect. I'm not saying a life without challenges, but it's real. You're going to stop pretending that you're fine when you're not. You're going to stop trying to control everything and start trusting. You can stop waiting for someone else to make the first move and take responsibility for the energy that you are bringing. And that's why I say that what I teach is a path, not a performance. It's not a kink. It's not a bedroom trick. It's a path that leads you back to yourself and back to the people that you love and back to the kind of life that actually feels good to be inside of. So wherever you are right now, you can bring this into your life. You can bring it into how you love. You can bring it into how you lead. You can bring it into how you breathe and trust and show up every single day. Because polarity is not a game. It's not something you put on and take off. It's a way of being. And the more that you align with it, the more everything starts to shift. So here's where I'll leave you today. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this, it's that everything I've talked about in this episode is not some theory. This isn't abstract. This isn't just a concept that only applies to some people. This is real life. This is the human experience. This is what I have only learned by living it. And this is something that you can learn and live as well. You can learn to live more fully, more honestly. This is something that you can embody for yourself. You can show up for yourself. You can show up for your partner. You can show up for the life that you actually want. I've said it a few times already, and I'll say it again. It's not going to be easy. It is going to break some things open in you. It's going to challenge the way you've been doing life, and it's going to confront some of the beliefs that you've carried since you were a child. It's going to show you the places you've been hiding behind performance or control or self-protection and the ego. But what does it give you in return? It's the ability to be free, to be you. Without the masks, without the act, without the pretending, without the avoidance, without having to try to be someone other than you are for yourself or for anyone else. And that freedom is what allows for real, true, unconditional love to exist in your life. The kind of love that doesn't fade, the kind of love that isn't full of yeah buts, the kind of sex that feels like worship, the kind of partnership that sets you free to be even more of yourself. It's not about being perfect. Dawn and I are not perfect. We don't have some magic formula that keeps everything perfect. We're human. We make our mistakes. We have our collapses. We have our big expansions. We have our places where we are continuing to call each other forward. We hit walls. We collapse and break down, and we rebuild better than before. This isn't about being perfect, but what we have is a structure, a way of relating that brings all of that shit out into the light instead of having to bury it or avoid it. We have a devotion to each other, to ourselves, and to the truth, and to the life that I'm building for us together. And that devotion is what underlies and makes the foundation for everything. It's why we named our business Infinite Devotion. Because when you truly commit to this path, not just as something you do in the bedroom, but something that you live, something you're building together, it becomes a reflection of who you've chosen to be. And that's where it all changes. Because a relationship that's built on polarity and on depth, on emotional truth and erotic honesty and mutual surrender and responsibility and love, that's a relationship that will stretch you beyond your actual potential and call you forward into the kind of man and woman that you were always meant to be. And when you're doing that together, everything gets better. When you're committed to seeing how good can this get, everything gets better. Your sex, your connection, your trust, the joy, the creativity, the power, the inner peace, the aliveness. All of that gets to come to life when you do this and choose this together. So wherever you're at in your journey, whether you're new to this or deep into it, if you're skeptical or curious, my invitation to you is the same. Don't just take in these ideas, turn this off, and then go back to living your life the same way you always have. Consider what it might mean to be vulnerable, to be open, to speak up for yourself, to speak your truth, to take more responsibility, to let go of control, to stop trying to fix things. This work will meet you where you are, but it will not let you stay there. If you're open to it, it will lead you all the way back home to yourself, to your partner, and to life. And thank you for being here with me today in this episode. And if this spoke to you, I would love for you to share it, leave a review, make a comment on YouTube, send it to someone who needs it, post about it, tag us if you're going to post this on any of your social media, all the stuff. It helps this message reach more people who are ready for it and who need to hear it. But more than that, live it for yourself. Let this be the thing that stirs something in you and reminds you who you are and who you were born to be. Let this be the thing that calls you back to what really matters. And if you're listening to this and you know you want to go deeper into this kind of work and you're feeling like you need some help, some support, reach out. Go into the show notes. We have self-study courses. I do one-on-one coaching. We have an unbelievable amount of free content out there and a lot more coming. And this whole thing, this whole Infinite Devotion platform, it exists to support you in becoming the most real, powerful, present version of yourself so that you can relate to your current or future partner in a way that allows for deep intimacy and really powerful connection and union. Because that's what the world needs the most. That's what the world is waiting for, is people who are willing to be themselves. Thank you for listening.